Hello, and we're live on the DA Wellbeing page. I've got Vicki on with us today. So Vicki Simpson Price has come on to talk to us. Vicki is actually a student counsellor at Dundee and Angus College, and she's also a psychotherapist who has run her business now for over 9 years in her private practice. Vicki's got a passion for working with people, and her keen interests include cyber digital psychology and the importance of sleep on the human body. Now, you probably see me looking down at a bit of paper there because I was never going to remember all that, because Vicki is truly fascinating. I've got to know Vicki a little bit in the background with some of the topics that we're going to be discussing on this live today. And I'm genuinely excited for this one because it's exploring the impact of lockdown on our mental health. Could there be a more fitting topic for now? So yeah, Vicki, first of all, just getting used to doing these lives and things and getting a bit of a flow for them. I just love to know, in your words, a little bit about yourself. Tell us about Vicki.
Well, I've been working with the college actually for about 4 years now, on and off, periodically coming in to help with freshers and refreshers, and working closely with the engagement team, etc., running lots of different things. The most popular one probably being the importance of sleep and social media addiction, and whatnot. And generally, I then obviously got the opportunity to come on board with 3 other counsellors in February last year to be a student counsellor. Yeah. So I work obviously part-time there, and it's a fantastic team. The 4 of us cover all campuses. And as I say, it's one thing that I really do enjoy, and I'm so glad I've come on board as part of the DNA kind of family, as would say.
Part of it now, Vicki, and you know what? It's like, it's not too dissimilar of path that I found into the college, to be fair. 2-3 years ago, you've been there a little bit longer than me, but I think 2-3 years ago, I would come to college as an external, delivering Rabble sessions when I was running my Rabble Dundee business. And through that, I got to know the college and took on some work on a short-term basis, which led me into the role I'm doing now, while still doing my mental health coaching on the side as well, with Headstrong, which we were speaking to on Wednesday there. So it's really fascinating how we've both come in from that angle. But you also run your own private practice as well, outside of college. Tell us a little bit about that.
I started up practice 9 years ago now, and it's based in Broughty Ferry. You don't need much, really just need a cosy room, and myself and some cosy chairs, essentially.
And a computer nowadays.
The practice has gone from strength to strength. However, worryingly, and as you can imagine, since lockdown, it really has completely and utterly taken off. So much so that I have a waiting list now, never have done, because that's the beauty of being private. You can genuinely actually shuffle your diary around a bit more. But genuinely, I've now got a waiting list. What I find great is the fact that more and more people are realizing the benefit of talking therapies, which is fantastic. And I'm actually getting a lot more males that are kind of coming into the practice now, which I also think is really good. So we're slowly but surely fighting against that stigma about talking therapies and being aware of your mental health, slowly but surely. But the practice really has, it's gone from strength to strength. And I work closely with other counsellors, therapists and psychologists within Dundee and surrounding areas to obviously pass on if required and refer as well.
What therapies is it, Vicki? Like what therapy? You mentioned there about using different therapies. What kind of therapy is it that you're using with the clients?
I'm an integrated therapist, which essentially means I'm quite greedy. I use everything and anything. As far as I'm concerned, one size does not fit all, and I do truly believe that. So I really do tap into a lot of different therapies, as does the other actual student counsellors that are on the team for DNA as well. We really do tap into lots of different theories, models, counselling based, psychotherapy, And I also use hypnotherapy as well as tools, which particularly help with stress, anxiety, visualization. I work with a lot of golfers, pro golfers, have done for a lot of years, all about visualization. Euro Pro, PGA, Challenge Tour.
Right. Yeah, I heard as well. So it was, I think it was on The Last Dance with Michael Jordan. They were talking a lot about basketball and visualization.
Yeah.
And a lot of basketball players do that. Have you watched the Queen's Gambit at all on Netflix?
I have.
And that's, again, all about visualization, because I can't remember her name, the girl in it, but she visualizes the chessboard on the ceiling. Because obviously she doesn't have access to the chessboard. So she's able to learn the game through visualization. Fascinating. And when we had Brian on Wednesday afternoon, there's a lot. Brian practices NLP therapies, but again, he does various other things, but mainly NLP. But he talks about CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, and neuro-linguistic programming, being NLP, CBT. Are those two practices you bring into your integrated coaching?
Absolutely, as well as solution-based psychoanalysis. Oh goodness me, systemic. Oh, there's lots of different ones you could bring into it, but definitely CBT, NLP. I love some of actually the tools that NLP use, particularly with the 3 positive points and rewiring the brain in order to change the filter from negative to positive and everything along those lines. That is a lot. And then obviously a lot more deep-rooted, as I say, with the psychoanalysis, etc. That tends to be for people who have a tendency to want to go back, through the historical time frame. And obviously I've got a keen understanding in developmental psychology and cognitive psychology, which is, I'm currently actually doing an experiment, or building, should I say, an experiment at the moment, to look at digital distractions. So how distractions...
such a big topic. We're really going to get into this, and I know we've spoke off camera a couple of days ago about this stuff, and I'm really, really passionate about the whole digital minimalising topic in general, and we will get into that later on. But I think hearing some of your background there, it's fascinating to know that this talk is going to go in so many directions. What I will say, first of all, just a little bit of housekeeping for the people at home, people who are watching. If you're watching just now live, fantastic. It's great, but not everybody can watch it live just now. That's fine. Watch it anytime on the page at your own leisure. It's going to be up there on the DA Wellbeing page forevermore, I believe, until it gets removed. The other thing as well is you might see me looking down to the left. I'm not being ignorant or anything. I am looking at the comments coming through on the Facebook page. So I've got my phone to the side. So if any comments are coming up, please, please, please chuck them in, and I'll be monitoring it regularly throughout whilst Vicky's talking, just to see if there's any questions come up, and we can just throw them at you in the moment, Vicky, and see how you got on with them, because it's really good. We've got just a couple of shout outs. We've got Robbie watching, we've got Katie watching at the moment, Benjamin's just joined us as well. So we've got a few people actually on just now, which is amazing. And yeah, so let's get stuck right into it then. So I've got top question, I suppose, is how are people supposed to feel during a pandemic? Let's start off with that one. What am I meant to feel like, Vicky, right now?
How long is a piece of string, really? I suppose is the way we're going to to say this. Do you know, I'm getting a lot of students, lecturers, private clients saying to me, what's normal? What genuinely is normal? And actually, there is no normal. And we keep hearing this over and over, but as far as emotions are concerned, we are entitled to feel what we feel completely and utterly, whether it be good, bad, indifferent, excited, happy, sad, low, flat. I mean, really genuinely, we're okay to feel what we feel. Certainly, we've all found ourselves yet again in an unprecedented position where everything's shut down, where suddenly we're being asked not to socialise, which is one of the major things that we require and need as a human being.
Connection.
We're actually being asked to change a lot. So much has changed for us since March last year. But one thing is for sure, we're certainly all feeling grief, to put a finer point on it. We all are all feeling grief.
This is really interesting. So We're grieving. Is that what you're saying? We're in a process of grieving right now.
Yes, there is
Okay.
lots of research. The Mental Health Foundation have been really doing a very, very clever study actually since March last year. And what's become quite prevalent is the fact that most people are in a grieving state. Now, some of us are actually 100% grieving because we have lost someone, unfortunately, due to COVID, or lost someone during what's been happening.
Yeah.
But then actually what we're also feeling is we're feeling a sense of we don't know what's coming next. Some of us are in denial, and we actually do have constructs of grief, which is denial, grief, denial, anger, depression, bargaining, and acceptance. And we're finding ourselves flowing back and forth through these feelings on a consistent basis. For anyone who's interested in understanding the grief curve, it's called Kubler-Ross. And certainly if you Google that, you'll be able to, it'll pop up straight away, Kubler-Ross's grief curve. But what's become quite prevalent is the fact that we're all in a state of that, just due to the fact of we've lost a sense of purpose. There's been a heck of a lot that's changed. We don't quite know how to compute this. And I think the finer point of saying is that we're all kind of firefighting at the moment. We're just trying to get through each day. We're trying to understand how we feel with the news that we're ingesting and what we can and can't do. And there's lots of mixed kind of messages that are coming our way. I mean, denial, for instance, a lot of us turn around saying that, it's not big enough. It's not a big deal. Unfortunately, there's a few of us that are turning towards conspiracy theories behind it all, in order to deny it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
We can't keep living in fear. I'm not going to keep living like this, so there's a real denial factor.
Yeah.
But then there's a real anger that's starting to build as well. So a lot of people are saying, you can't make me wear a mask. You won't make me stay in. I won't conform. What about my future? What am I going to do? And particularly for students, what about their future? Where's their purpose?
Yeah, I mean, the fact about anger there is really interesting as well, because I just think even like just this year alone, in the last month or two, there seems to be more anger out there. And it's like people putting their anger against other people or choosing a camp, whether, I'm on this side, you're on that side. If you're not with me, you're against me. And it's the whole like, and that is exactly it. It's like you're with us or against us mentality, when actually we're all in this together. And was it yourself, Vicky, or somebody speaking to the other day said a really, really good phrase that stuck with me, and it was that we're not all in the same boat. We're all in the same storm. So we're in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat. And it really it adds to that. That saying like, we're all in the same boat. We're not, because we're all impacted so differently by this storm. And I love that. But the thing about the anger, I've just noticed it more so than ever, that there's this. Yeah. Anger against the government, anger against people to people, anger against different things.
Yeah.
And it's really
because we have no place in which to direct it to, unfortunately. We have absolutely no place in which to direct it to. And the feelings of low, the feelings of being scared, isolated, lonely, sad. Yes. And actually, on the complete and utter opposite side, we've also got people who actually are enjoying this. They're enjoying the quieter society. And some people are saying, how can you enjoy that? But to my point, I'm like, well, this is why it's so unique to everybody.
Yeah.
And hence why nobody's wrong for feeling what they feel.
That's so true. So that thing about, again, you're not in this, you're in the same storm, not in the same boat. So, and that's why I suppose people are actually enjoying it. Put it this way, let's take it away from people for a minute. We've both got dogs, don't we? You've got your dog, I've got my 3. And I believe they're living their best lives right now. The last year has been a dog's life, hasn't it? Like, let's think about what it's been like for a dog's point of view. More human connection, more regular walks, people around more, they're more centre of attention. They're not just chucked in a cage all day while we're at the house for 9 hours. Not that I would ever do that, but there are the... But from that point of view, I've taken it off topic a little bit, but it's different. Everybody's going to have a different take on this pandemic, this lockdown.
And certainly what I've been saying, I've been trying to normalise it for everyone I've been coming across. It's like, unfortunately, and what I even say when we haven't been in this predicament and this phenomenon that we're all experiencing now, is that you're okay to feel what you feel, and nobody can tell you what you feel is wrong. Because at the end of the day, it's your feeling.
Yeah, that's exactly what it should be, but it just sometimes it just doesn't feel like that, does it?
I know.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, but no. But I think what I'm trying to say is, I think what you feel right now, and whether, I've got to be honest with you as well, sometimes you could feel great one minute, not great the next minute. And at this stage, what we're actually experiencing and what people are experiencing is emotions, but a lot stronger just now. We're certainly seeing that. We're seeing that with people, and some of the not so great emotions that they think they're coming across, anxiety, feeling flat, feeling low, tends to be a lot stronger for them right now.
Is that the hope thing, Vicki, do you think? Is it to do with you mentioned earlier on about there not being as much sort of to look forward to or hope? Is that like this intensity?
One of the, and we will get on to this, but one of the big models of positive psychology, or to be able to keep a purpose and a goal really within people's lives, is to have some sort of positive emotions, feel engaged, have relationships around us, have meaning, and get a sense of accomplishment. Okay, but genuinely at the moment, all of that is being kind of knocked on the head for some. And I'm going to say some because not all, one size doesn't fit all, as I said before. But genuinely, yeah, it is. It's that lack of knowing what's coming next, and particularly for students, and I really do feel for students, so much has changed for the college students. They're being asked to work online. Even technology, for as wonderful as technology is, it's certainly a barrier as well. It can definitely be a barrier for most. For students having that confidence to put their camera on and sit in front of a camera and in front of a whole class is a huge barrier. So I've been hearing drip feeding back to me, from the academic staff. And genuinely finding it difficult because they're not being held or feel as though they're being held or supported the same way as what they would do from all of the staff at DNA.
Totally.
At the college.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting you say that, because a big part of, obviously, just to make everybody aware that's maybe watching that's not from the college, the campuses are not open currently. As staff, we can go in for to pick up some bits and pieces if we need to, absolutely need to, but the campuses are closed at the moment, and all our students are learning online fully. And I've actually just come out of a class this morning. I was delivering a wellbeing session to a group of our English as a second language students. We call them our ESOL students, studying English as a second language. And I have to tell you, Vicki, every camera was on. In this particular group, there was 20 cameras on, 20 faces I was seeing, which was amazing. But I have been in other classes where, there's no cameras on. No. And it's down to them how they want to engage with the session, but it's difficult. And all of a sudden you go from a position where you go to a place to study, you go to a place where you socialize and you study and the support's there, and our teams and your teams can kind of you come in, have a cup of tea in the office, how you feeling, how you doing, and there's all these different signaling opportunities, signposting opportunities. I fear that we miss some of that in a way because it takes more effort to get in contact with someone potentially. That's some of the things I've been seeing. But
also, certainly from the staff point of view as well, we as staff love to be face to face. We love to be engaged with all the students and our colleagues. We're missing working with our colleagues. We're missing seeing people. We're genuinely missing that buzz. And there's a lot of staff that I can tell you that are also in this grief state because we're really grieving our working environment too. So
that's so good you brought that up. Yeah. Because
students, if you're listening, we get where you're coming from, but also remember, from our point of view, we're missing you too.
I think that's so true. And you know what? The type of people that do counselling roles and support roles and roles like myself around wellbeing and the learner engagement team and student services, we without going into detail about disc profiles and things like that, we tend to be people who we like to help people. And to help people means to be around people. It means we get a lot of our own good feelings from helping others and seeing the direct results of helping others. So it's and we're social people. We tend to be quite extroverted at times as well. And now we're isolated on our own in a home. I find it difficult because of that, because I like to be around people. My previous business, which was Rabble Dundee, was all about team building and connecting, and obviously that just went completely down when all this kicked off. So that's so good you brought the staff in there as well, because it's about all of us. We're all one family, and actually the impacts are happening across the staff. So just to quickly go over that grief model again, Vicki, just for people, because I maybe sidetracked you a bit on it. Can you just give me an example of a typical day or a week where this grief model might kick in and what it would look like?
I say that we can swing within those 5. So denial, anger, depression, bargaining, and acceptance. We can actually swing throughout all of them, even in an hour, let alone a day, let alone a week. We genuinely can. It's called an organic model for a reason, and that's because we consistently shift and move. And like you said when I spoke to you earlier this week, Jason, it is a bell curve. So essentially it'll come down to a dip and it'll go back up again. So what I would certainly say is please look up Kubler-Ross on Google if you're more than interested, if you really want to find out. What I've often suggested to people is to print it off if you can, or at least get a picture of it on your phone and actually mark where you're at on it at any point. It actually gives you some form of control to understand and, really psychological understanding as to where you're at that moment, and that's okay. So genuinely, within a week, we really can. We can go through denial states, we can go through angry states. At this stage, we may very well have people going through a very fearful state because we don't know when lockdown's potentially going to end.
Yep.
There might be a lot of students out there that are just fearful for not knowing if they're even going to get past this course because they're really struggling with engaging on Teams, which then incites a low. And then there could be an acceptance. There could be a lot of people. Certainly, I found myself going through an acceptance role just yesterday when I was like, well, do you know what? If this is the way it's going to be for a while, I just have to create something for myself that's going to make it good.
This is absolutely fascinating, because sometimes, I'll be honest with you, you get to the end of the week and you're like, I've went through a range of emotions this week. And actually, you could be quite concerned about your own mental health, because one minute you're up, you're down, you're up, you're down, you're up, you're down. But what you're saying, Vicki, in answer to the question is, is it okay to feel like that then? Is it okay to be
100% normal? 100% normal. What we're going through, and the same as any grief type state, but then we've also got that added on top of it with the social constructs of what's happening right now, or lack of social constructs.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, we've also got the change that we're trying to process. We're also potentially living in a home with people that we're not used to seeing every day all the time, or very much isolated and alone. So we have all of those emotions added on top of that as well. But what I can say is, and I'm normalizing it now, what you're feeling is okay to feel. And although it may be very uncomfortable to feel that, and we'll get into that in a bit, and things that you can maybe do, but it's okay to feel that way. Please don't think there's something wrong with you, not by any means. And even as a mental health practitioner, and I'm sure I speak for the other counsellors that are on board within the college as well, we feel the same too.
Yeah, totally. That's such a powerful message, Vicki. Thank you so much. And it's a message I'll reiterate as well, and I'm sure you'll back it up, is you're not broken. And it was something Brian said the other night as well. It's like, you're not broken. We're just all going through an experience just now, and we're all dealing with it differently at different times. And as mental health coaches, counsellors and things as well, we go through exactly the same range of emotions. And often we don't seek out the help because we're supposed to know better. I'm speaking for myself now, Vicki, but coaches are sometimes the worst because we fail to seek out our own coaches. But it's just as important for coaches, if you're watching, to have your own coach, and don't neglect it and talk, because...
And it's important. I mean, as a therapist, I've got a supervisor that I tap into and speak to pretty much every week, where I have to offload onto, and that's ethical. It's very, very ethical to do that. And certainly, so there you go. I mean, even counsellors, psychologists, whatever, all of us have to offload as well. So know that sometimes just taking someone aside and saying, can I speak to you for a wee bit? It's okay to do that. It's totally fine. It's actually quite normal.
Yeah, and I think like on the like you were saying earlier on, you're seeing a rise in numbers of clients. You've now got a waiting list. It's I don't have a massive capacity to take on like extra clients, but just a couple a week. But I know that there's an abundance coming through, and I'm currently working pretty much exclusively with sort of late teens, early 20s at the moment. I've seen quite a surge in that sort of age group.
100%. Yeah.
It leads me on to my sort of next question for you, and that is that I hear a lot about this resilience word, and in my mind, I'm thinking like I'm working with a lot more young people, and I don't know what it is, but are they not as resilient as they used to be? Or I don't know. So the question is, I hear a lot about this word resilience, but I just want you to give me your understanding of what resilience is and why it's important.
Yeah. Resilience is a funny one, and it's a buzzword that's been used a lot over the last few years. It gets used a lot within educational establishments. It gets used a lot within, obviously, coaching side of things, and actually within the psychological kind of theories and whatnot as well. The theory of resilience is actually a theory and a model. But psychological resilience, in a nutshell, is the ability to mentally and emotionally cope with a crisis, and then return to a pre-crisis state quickly. Okay? Now, to break that down, essentially what that means is that when something stressful happens, it's our ability to be able to work with that, figure out what we need to do, solution find if we can at that point, and then try to bring us back down to a state where we can function. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, just to kind of really break it down. Unfortunately, when we get too anxious, too stressed, or really, really angry, unfortunately, we can't quite think along the same lines as what we would do when we're calm. We tend to act out, or we tend to shut down, you know. So resilience can also say is, although there's lots of different constructs of resilience out there, it is actually very unique to the person, because it encapsulates the person, how they think, how they feel, their environment, how they were brought up, what they were taught. Really, the list goes on, okay? But essentially, as far as I'm concerned, it is unique to the individual. Establishments such as educational establishments and people like myself, we promote resilience, but predominantly, it does come down to you as an individual to manifest it.
So on that was it's really interesting. I was going to say as well, Vicki, just before we move on, we've got a lot more people watching now, so I was going to give a quick shout out to some of them. So we've now got Michael is on here, Sam, Gillian, we've got Steph, James, I don't know, I'll say Soso, Vicki, Natalia, Carla, Dale, quite a lot of people have just come on. And also, when you were mentioning like the Kubler-Ross model, stages of grief, and if you mention other models, we'll pop it up in the comments as well. So they're also going up for the people at home, so they can dip into that at their own leisure. So this is, because I knew I was going to ask you about resilience, and I've been reading the book myself at the moment, which their definition of resilience in it is something called grit. And it's one, if anybody wants to have a look at it, it's called Grit by Angela Duckworth. And I haven't read the whole book, I'll be honest, because I don't tend to read whole books anyway. I tend to dip in and out of what it is I need from that book, or whatever I feel it is I need at that time from that book. And the definition there, I suppose, is it's like it's grit. It's like your ability just to push through, I suppose, and be resilient in that sense. And, you know, if you get knocked down, you pick yourself back up again. There's not, I don't know, it's like you have to take quite a lot of knocks to be able to rebound from them. And I suppose it's a bit grit to me, and that might not be the way Angela Duckworth was intending it, but to me, that's kind of what grit is. It's like the Spartan model, Joe DeCina's book, and you're having that grit for like driving on through, making life deliberately harder for yourself at times is that concept, and then being able to rebound would be resilience. So are you saying then that resilience is something that can be taught or something that can be learned as opposed to something you just have?
I think it really depends. I mean, certainly we all have a different, backstory of how we were brought up. Certainly we're not born with, an innate knowledge of resilience. It is something that's taught. From that aspect of things. But arguably, there's research that also states that there could actually a nature-nurture debate, I guess, when we kind of come into it. It takes a certain type of person, blah, blah, blah. But there was a doctor called Dr. Ginsberg. She's a child pediatrician and a human development expert. And essentially, she created the 7 C's of resilience, okay? And they were competence, confidence, connection, character, contribution, coping, and control. Okay. Now, within that, and I'd like to add an 8th one onto that, just because I always like to add a bit more on. But I would like to add choice onto that.
Okay. I know.
Yeah, and I also believe there comes a responsibility and a choice for you to choose how actually you might very well cope with something.
Mm-hmm.
So we can choose to take the ostrich scenario and stick our head in the sand and say, I don't want to look, I can't deal with this. Or essentially, once we've kind of had a moment, we can sit back and say, well, how am I going to look at this and how can I make it better for myself?
Yeah.
Okay? Which is, I think, where the grit aspect comes into it a little bit, from when you said. Penultimately, it's nice to ask for a helping hand to help us develop the resilience. Don't get me wrong, it really is. And I actually think also when we can connect with people that we view as being able to cope with situations quite well, then we learn from that.
Yeah, well, so this is the whole. I suppose this is the whole thing about who you hang around with or who you choose to spend your time with can, in what environment you choose to be in, will influence the way you become as a person.
Yep.
Yeah, I find that fascinating.
And I will put this out there. I also think arguably age comes into it, and life experience can come into it.
You mean generational age? So like my grandparents were brought up in a different time to me, obviously. So in my mind, this might be wrong, but in my mind, they were a hardier generation. They didn't have as many niceties as what we have now. It wasn't as comfortable a life growing up. However many years ago as it is growing up as a millennial, for example. That be?
But arguably, what we're going through now, we could very much see. Yes, we could see potentially a mental health negative fallout, adversely affect fallout after what we're experiencing now. But in another retrospect, we could actually be creating very much a hardy nation again.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's just flipping the same situation on its head and looking at it from a slightly different angle. There is the whole theory, and I will put this out there because I think this is to give hope as well, is there's always light after dark. There's always, there's always day after night type scenario. And yeah, we're in a bit of a dark place in the world right now, but just wait until the other side. And I'm sure if we had this conversation with grandparents and great-grandparents who were brought up in the mid-late 30s, early 40s, that'd be a very dark time as well. But then as they got to the latter 50s, 60s, 70s, it became very vibrant and free and fun again, life. So, it's...
Certainly what I've said to students in the past, and specifically when I've been talking about self-esteem, finding that value and worth of self, that is highly interlinked to a resilient type nature and a motivated type nature. There's not always going to be someone standing behind you giving the pat on the back and saying go for it, or get that done or get that finished. It has to come from you. It has to genuinely come from you. You have to want it. You have to really, really want it. So for all of you that are really struggling at the moment with your studies, and I totally understand, I totally get it, because at the end of the day, you didn't sign up for this. Nobody did. But genuinely, I think there has to be something in you that reinvests yourself as to why you're doing it. So you have to ask yourself, why did I start this in the first place, and why do I want it? That'll keep you going.
Okay, is that linked to purpose then? Just when you said, why do I want it? What screamed out at me there was purpose.
Yes.
What's my purpose? Why am I doing this?
Yeah, I have to, every morning when I wake up, and I know this sounds really silly, but every morning I sit on the end of my bed and I say, right, am I going to have a good day or a bad day? Okay, very simple question. Of course, I'm not going to turn around and say I'm going to have a bad day. Really, because if I choose to have a bad day, then I'm going to have to take what that brings, because I'll manifest that, if that makes sense, with my mood and my attitude.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if I sit at the end of my bed and say, do you know what? No, I'm going to have a good day. Weirdly enough, something shifts. It's enough for me to cultivate and say, well, I'm going to try at least, no matter how small. And even now in this state, I'm a big believer in really, really small, manageable goals. So hence, you probably, if any students have ever come across me in the past, you'll hear me bang on about SMART goals.
Yeah.
Small, measurable, attainable, reachable targets. But I think we need to think even smaller right now. Just really small. If you're getting up, putting your clothes on and brushing your hair, brilliant. Much better than what some people are doing.
Absolutely. I mean, on that one there, Vicky, I have to say, okay, I'm going to jump in a little bit here, because this is John's getting to your toolkit now of how to build resilience, which is amazing. And that point there about getting yourself ready and in state for an online lesson is, give yourself credit for that, because I know that there's a lot of students out there that will not get changed and showered to go and sit on the computer for 9 o'clock. So if you're one of the ones that are, give yourself a big pat on the back, because it allows you to be in the right state for learning. If you're still lying in your bed in your jammies, eating your breakfast with your laptop open, you're half watching the lesson, you are not going to get as much out of it as you would if you were dressed up, ready, and sat at your desk and present. That is. Would you agree with that, Vicky?
I would. I think you need to present yourself. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm having to work from home at the moment, and what's really funny is some days I'm kind of up top for business work, but I'm still wearing my shorts.
Your camera's not going below. The camera will not go below.
And that's totally fine. You've got to laugh at it. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there's something in me that wants to keep going and still have some sort of sense of motivation and purpose.
Yeah.
And genuinely, if you get up and be present and genuinely recognize in yourself, what is it you're wanting this for, regardless of what's happening around you, within reason, obviously. But, if you genuinely can push yourself to think, well, what am I, imagine that sense of achievement you'll get when you get that certificate in your hand or that diploma in your hand, and you've managed to do that through a pandemic.
How amazing! Oh, that to me, you've nailed it there. And actually, like, the next question I've got for you, I'm going to present it to you now, because we're really starting to get into this, and I want you to have the time to explore these over the next 20 minutes. What is your toolkit for building resilience and a better form of well-being? You've given us set small goals, sitting on the end of your bed in the morning and manifesting. I love to use that word, by the way. Manifesting into your, and I will add
yourself
in your own style, Vicky. I will add on to your model there in terms of manifestation for anybody that's not read The Secret or is aware of Rhonda Blythe's work in that sense. What Vicky's doing is she's manifesting positive influences into her world for that particular day, in the same way as what you can manifest negative influences into your world from that day. Just because you've stubbed your toe in the bed when you've got out it in the morning, it doesn't mean the rest of your day is going to be painful. And it is a good way of looking at it. You can manifest a very positive day. And what Vicky is doing is very deliberately setting herself up for success from the minute she steps out of bed in the morning. So over to you, Vicky, and continue to share some of these this toolkit for us.
As far as the toolkit is concerned, again, it's very, very unique, and it has to be what kind of floats your boat. So if you're not really into yoga or sitting having a mindfulness moment, then please don't make yourself do it.
Yeah.
I do suffer from a bit of glass bottom at times, and I do genuinely struggle sometimes to sit there for 5-10 minutes, when my mind's a bit busy.
Yeah.
But one thing I would say, and certainly to build resilience, is one, get enough sleep. And you'll hear me bang on and on and on and on about this. Yep. Please get enough sleep. For those of you, I don't know if any students have, but a lot of students have, when I was certainly doing them face-to-face, was in my Importance of Sleep lectures. And So many students have walked away floored by actually how the lack of sleep can genuinely impact both mentally and physically down to a cellular level. Okay, certainly for anyone that's interested, there's a book, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker.
Yep.
This gentleman brought the whole sleep industry to a standstill in 2015 by what this book actually found. Okay, the first page actually had me floored to the point that I was thinking, wow, okay, I actually had no idea that it was that much. That there's a reason why we need sleep. And the way I look at it is, if your mobile phone's starting to run out of battery, what do?
Charge it.
Plug it in, don't you? So we kind of need to do the same thing, and that's what sleep does to us. We're plugging ourselves in, or we're switching ourselves off, to put a finer point on it.
Yeah.
Okay. So please try to get enough sleep. And when I talk about, and I'm going to talk about routine and structure in your waiting day, but actually you need routine and structure as far as sleep is concerned. So, if you're getting less than 7 hours, now 7 hours equates to when you get into bed and you start to get cozy, okay? It's not 7 hours dead sleep. It just doesn't happen that way. We have anything between 5 and 6 sleep cycles a night, which last 90 minutes roughly per cycle, okay? So essentially you need to be getting 7 hours plus sleep a night, okay? Which equates to 5 to 6 sleep cycles that I've just spoke to you about.
Yep.
If you're genuinely sitting there and thinking, well, I got 4 hours sleep last night and I woke up about 3 or 4 times, that is not enough. And genuinely your mental aptitude, your ability to cope with stress, anxiety will be much lower than those people who genuinely, have managed to get a reasonable night's sleep. That goes down to watching your caffeine intake, trying not to smoke any forms of nicotine or anything else before going to bed. Even alcohol. Alcohol stops you getting in to the stages of sleep that you need to for restorative sleep.
That's fascinating because I'm aware of that. I've not read Why We Sleep yet. I've spoke to you the other day and it is on my reading list. But just on that one there, for people, when you're talking about sleep, you're talking about levels of sleep. Now, to me, that's really interesting because not everybody's aware about these different levels of sleep. So when you get drunk and fall asleep, are you sleeping then, or what are you? Say you have a few glasses of wine, are you sleeping? What are you?
There's 5 levels of sleep. The 5th level is REM, so that's a rapid eye movement or a dream type sleep, which we've only found out a few years ago actually has a very prominent feature in our sleep cycle, and particularly within our day-to-day psychological aptitude. It resets our emotional centers. That's essentially what dreaming does. But when we have alcohol, even a couple of glasses of wine, unfortunately, we don't get into the restorative stages, which is stages 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't sit there for the length of time that we should do. So hence why, and I speak for myself as well, if I've had a good skinful, I'll always wake up the next day, not only dying, but genuinely waking up and saying, I feel knackered, I feel tired, I'm drained.
Even though you've had 7 hours.
Yeah. I mean, genuinely, I used to think that as soon as your head hit the pillow, you were out, but genuinely, it's not that type of sleep. You're just comatose. That's
why I find it fascinating because, people will go, well, I get my 7 hours, Vicky. You've just said it's not about when you fall asleep, it's about when you get cozy. So I got my bed at 11 and I get up at 6. There's 7 hours. So why am I absolutely shattered? That would be the question, wouldn't it? That's the question that you often hear, but it's actually this levels of sleep that's the influencer there, and what you've done to the point of going to sleep. So in terms of
are you going to bed feeling emotionally drained? Are you going to bed worried? Are you going to bed anxious? Hence why I always say, please excuse the expression, but do a mind dump, good old pen and paper. Just write down what's on your mind, what's rattling about in there before you go to sleep. Believe it or not, it actually does work, So it's just one thing. So managing your sleep and learning that will allow you to manage stress and manage low mood, generally feel better, throughout your day, both physically and mentally. If you're not sleeping as well, let's just say you're someone who likes sport. If you're not time, and you're having 2 to 3, 4 nights a week where you're not sleeping properly, you are more likely to pull muscles, you're more likely to be injured. You know, and I highly recommend getting a sleep app. Genuinely track your sleep, start tracking it.
Which ones in particular, Vicky? Are there any that you would stand out?
Sleep Cycle is particularly good. Sleep Cycle's the one I use. And it's literally a little orange box with a little alarm clock in the middle of it called Sleep Cycle. That's the one I like to use. If you track it for 4 nights, you then start getting a graph, and it starts giving you a percentage of your sleep every day. I'm now that into it that if I drop below 85%, I start getting my knickers in a twist.
I'll pop that up on the chat as well just now then. So we've got Matthew, what was his surname again?
Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep.
Excellent. Why We Sleep. And what was the other one? Was the...
Sleep Cycle.
Sleep Cycles as well. Excellent. If we can get, we'll put that up in the chat, because this is where my inner geek comes out big time. If there's a graph and a chart and whatever else, then I'm like, I'm over that. I think it's fascinating. So tell me then, how do you get 85% or above, or how are you doing that then?
Well, there's actually been just recent research that's come out for you to try and actually get your optimum bedtime, okay? And it's dead easy. You know how I was telling you about each sleep cycle lasts 90 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, and we're meant to have 5 or 6 cycles a night. Now, if I want to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, for instance, I count back 90-minute increments over 5 or 6 cycles to then get my optimum bedtime.
Okay, so calculate that. 11, 11:30, something like that?
Yep, 11, 11:30, something like that, roughly thereabouts. So essentially, that is apparently the way you calculate the actual sleep that you should be getting, is if you're actually able to count back in 90-minute increments from the moment you want to wake up, count right back, and it should hopefully give you your time that you want to, you know, get up. Whether or not you agree with that time is a different story.
Or whether or not you can actually physically adhere to that time as well, because obviously we do have people that work nights and, you know, different types of jobs and situations, staff workers, nurses.
People who work long shifts, particularly night shifts, you are more predispositioned to potentially developing dementia and Alzheimer's when you're older.
And that's purely due to the sleeping during the daylight hours and not during the night.
Yeah. But I mean, as well as, to bring us back to the resilience side, as well as, you know, the sleep and exercise, you know, so, and exercise could even be just going for a short walk twice a day. You know, you don't have to be doing anything mad or nuts, you know, like HIIT workouts or anything along those lines. You know, genuinely getting out into fresh air, regardless of whether it's raining, stick a jacket on, go for a walk, you know, and practice thought awareness. So being very self-aware of what is going through your head. So in other words, don't turn around and say, I can't think like this, okay? Acknowledge the elephant in the room. Acknowledge it. Genuinely say, okay, I'm thinking this right now. It's not very good. My mood's taking a bit of a flat. Thank you very much. Open the door for the elephant and help it out.
I love that. That's very CBT. Very like, you see a thought, let it float away in a bubble type idea, and you don't get affected by it. Don't go with it. Just allow the thought to pass through, and no more. Don't try and influence it. Don't try and stop it. You can't get rid of your thought.
Invoke a little bit of perception or perspective training. So naturally being able to turn around and go, okay, I can't find a solution for this thought at the moment. Does it need to be shelved, or can it be binned? Is another way to kind of look at it. If you're actually having a go at yourself at that point in time, really, are you getting anything out of having a pop at yourself? Probably not, because nobody likes that. So actually, we should be binning that. We should be saying, I need to get rid of this. I need to bin this. I mean, you need to actually remind yourself of your positive qualities. Now, I know that's easier said than done. And a lot of you will be sitting there thinking, well, I really struggle to do that. Most of us do, can I just say. It actually takes a lot of practice in order to get to the point of where you can say, oh, don't like that thought, thank you very much. I recognise it's there, but actually I don't want to keep sitting with that, so therefore I need to bin it, etc. You know, but it takes a lot of time. But trust me when I say, if you can really get into that nice flowchart way of thinking, it becomes easier.
It's really fascinating.
That. Practice, as I'd said before, that cognitive restructuring, that's exactly what I've just explained here. That's that type of restructuring. Can also say that starting just writing down 3 positive points out of a day would be good.
Lovely. Yeah, I mean, that's the concept of journaling is, especially for, I've seen a lot of it to do with males at the moment. Male journaling is huge because, again, with mental health, a lot of men choose not to speak out. And it's a really good way to get that stuff out your head onto a piece of paper. So journaling has become very, very popular. And I tried journaling, started it last year, and I still do bits of it now. But I actually got a book, I can't remember what it's called now, but if you Google like help on how to journal, and I got a book that guided me how to journal, because I just started doing it and then started in my notebook and I don't know what to write. I have no idea how to get this stuff out of my head. So the little journal guide was amazing and just allowing me to just a few bullet points about what it wanted me to write, and it got me into the habit of it, which was nice.
That's 3 points, 3 genuine points, and it could be even down to, do you know what? I received a funny text from a friend, and that really brightened up my day, or you know, I managed to complete a piece of work and I'm really pleased with myself, or I made something yummy for my tea. It really, really doesn't need to be anything big, and at the moment it probably won't be because none of us are really going anywhere. So
I think that's where I got caught up, Vicky, actually, was I was going down the route of I need to come up with 3 things I'm grateful for every day. And I really struggled with that. Now, it's not that I'm not grateful for 3 things, of course I am, but it just every day I was like, oh, I'm writing the same thing all the time. And it really put me off. But the way you've done that, it's simplified it right down to the point that anybody could write 3 points in a day like that.
Yeah, and it could be anything. It genuinely could be. It could be even the fact of, I got up today. Excellent, brilliant. You know, and I've often said that, especially with clients that suffer with depression and really struggle sometimes to get out of bed. The fact that they've got up, got dressed, fair play, well done. The fact that they've even got out of their bed, brilliant. Let's really carry on that. You know, and learn from your mistakes and failures. That's another thing. You know, at the end of the day, we've created a society where it's not okay to fail. And it's not okay to make mistakes. But can I just say that the word fail means first attempt in learning? Not always does. Yeah.
I think you actually told. I've got that written down on a piece of paper on my shelf, and I think it came from you earlier in the week. And I just loved it because you only learn when you fail. You know, if you continue to get things right all the time, you don't tend to remember them. It's the moments where you failed that you'll learn the most about yourself and you actually grow out of it. I'm a big believer in that.
And you know what? I haven't, not by any means, sailed through my studies. Wow. I mean, the amount of years I've been studying, I mean, genuinely, there's no way, shape or form I've sailed through it. And genuinely, there has been, you know, assignments that I've failed. There's been assignments I've barely scraped through. And it hurts, it stings. But actually, there's that part of, do you know what? No, I'm going to make it better next time. I'm going to learn from it. That's the only thing I can do.
I think that's absolutely brilliant. Just coming up to like the last sort of 5-7 minutes here. So there's just one last thing I wanted to ask you about on sleep there, because you went through lots of different tips and tricks, and that was absolutely a fantastic toolkit of stuff. Now, it's just because it's a question that kind of came to me when you're talking about you need at least 7 hours sleep. Now, in the past, we've had the likes of Maggie Thatcher, the Iron Lady, famously surviving on 4 hours sleep a night, and actually celebrating that to the point where it becomes a tough thing and you're at the top of your game if you can survive on only 4 hours sleep and be fully functional the next day. I just wanted to know your interpretation of that.
Believe it or not, there is actually people out there that are called the sleep elite, and that's about 2% of the population, okay, that genuinely can function. Now, they do say, as you get older, actually, your circadian rhythm shifts to a point that you might actually only need 5 hours.
Yeah.
And so, okay, but remember, if you are living an active life, if you are, you know, really involved within your work, etc., perhaps you're learning, you do need longer. You do genuinely need longer. I'm not going to lie, my absolute perfect sleep number is 9 hours.
Really? See, that's so interesting, because my absolute perfect sleep hour is no more than 8, somewhere between 7.5 and 8. And I know that
Yep.
because when I sleep over 9 hours, I feel terrible. Like I'm just foggy, and it's like
Yep.
it's hard because at the weekend it's like, oh, I'll treat myself to a long lie, but it's not a treat because of the way I feel after it. But what I found,
I mean, don't get me
Vicki,
wrong, I still always am. I'm up in the morning. I'm not a morning person, but I'm somebody who likes to get up in the morning. But genuinely, yeah, 9 hours I'm firing on all cylinders, and I've even had clients that have commented and said, oh, you must have got a good sleep last night because you're really going for it today.
that's amazing, and that makes you want to do it more, I suppose, doesn't it? Because if you have got it right. But yeah, just to finish that one off there, I want to know your sort of thoughts on this as well. And it was something I read in the news the other day. Was Boris Johnson apparently takes a 20-minute nap in the afternoon, and it was he was almost being criticised for it, to the point where he's denied it anyway. He has denied the fact that he takes his 20-minute nap, which I think is a real shame personally, because he's obviously thinking it's making him look lazy, but actually you're going to say something different, aren't you?
No, actually, believe it or not, only research, probably at the beginning of last year, proved that having a cat nap, a disco nap, or whatever you want to call it, actually helps restore our energy levels, and actually we're more likely to be on top of our mental aptitude game after doing it.
I agree.
Yeah. And genuinely, and yeah, definitely, I've caught a few Z's in the afternoon before.
Yeah, me too. Not every day, just when I feel I need it. It
helps activate a positive emotion. It helps cultivate just a bit more energy. It genuinely does. It kind of sets you up again for the kind of remainder, of your day. So certainly, don't be frightened. And at the moment, we're trying to emotionally handle a heck of a lot that's coming our way, and I've got to be honest with you, a lot of people are turning around saying they're feeling more tired just now. So if you need to have a bit of a nap, have a nap. There's nothing wrong with that.
I honestly couldn't agree more with that. And it's like, yourself almost like when you need it. And again, what is the right time on this? Because you hear 20 minutes, you hear no more than 20 minutes, no more than half an hour. What is the right amount of time for a nap, do you think?
I think it depends. I've got to be honest, to say 20 minutes, for me, I think half an hour, roughly 30 minutes, seems to just recharge my batteries just enough.
Yeah.
But for everyone, I think, again, that's quite a unique thing. For some people, they might want 45 minutes. What I would say is, try not go over a good hour or two, because you might very well wake up with the kind of duvet head, as I call it, the grogginess.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You go backwards.
Yeah, exactly. So I would maybe say from that. But, I mean, certainly that is, I would say, probably one of the penultimate skills at the moment. And sleep is a skill because you have to get yourself into it. And if you permanently deny yourself it, then you're going to start running into problems. And handling lockdown, handling everything that's coming our way at the moment is going to be even harder.
I totally agree. So, I mean, that just kind of wrapping can bring the session to a bit of a close now, Vicki. It's like the title of the session was, about lockdown and the pandemic from a psychological well-being perspective, and sort of how we're all dealing with that, and how we're all experiencing it. And it's amazing how we've gone on a whole journey here, but everything does come back to sleep in a sense as well. When it comes to your general well-being and your ability to deal with situations that are going on, they become bigger and badder when we're more tired and less able to mentally cope with things. So by having a level of self-care and a good routine around your self-care, that seems to be one of the biggest points here in terms of dealing with the pandemic. If
you're looking after yourself, 100%. If you're looking after yourself, you are more likely to handle the negativity that's kind of happening at the moment and what's going on. And actually, you're more likely to cultivate a sense of positive emotion as well. So genuinely self-care, eating well, sleeping well, connecting with others. And I know we're not allowed to, but genuinely connecting with others, going for a walk with one other person in the park, connecting with each other. Use social media to your advantage. Connect with people.
Yeah, absolutely. Social media is not bad if it's used correctly. It's just when you're aimlessly flicking through news feeds about news articles, churning the
genuinely step away from it. Have a digital detox at least once a day. Step away from it. Genuinely do. So especially at night.
Yeah, and I mean, if you don't have the self-control to do that as well, like myself, I'm actually looking into one of these little lock boxes. So you literally put your phone in the box for now. Honestly, and it might be good for sweet treats or people that can't keep their hand at the biscuit tin, for example. You know, we're all guilty of that at times. So these little lockable boxes are like 15 quid or something like that. And it might be money well spent if you need to get off your device for an hour and you just don't feel you've got the self-control to be able to do it. That might be quite good. So just the way I like to kind of wrap these interviews up, Vicki, is really, really simply, if you've got 3 top tips right now off the top of your head to give to anybody about surviving this pandemic and getting through it, what would they be? 3 things. You'll have discussed them already, but just your top 3.
Yep. Sleep well, 100%. Yep. If you can, cultivate that. Cultivate a routine and structure, no matter how small every day. Please create a bit of a routine and structure. That is absolute fundamental. And 3, don't be alone. If you can connect with someone, please do. At the end of the day, we're social creatures. It's biologically imprinted in us that we need to be social. So please be social if you can, within reason, and as long as it's safe to do so.
Brilliant. No, that's absolutely fantastic. Nice, simple advice there. And if you want any more information, like I said, there's some models that I'll be putting in the comments around why we sleep. I'm definitely going to be reading that book, Vicki. You also mentioned the 5 stages of grief model as well, which is also the reference for it's in there. And Vicki's also doing a talk this afternoon as well on Teams at 2:30. So if there's any students on just now that want to book in for that, it's a closed session, so you will actually need to book in for it, and you'll need to book in for it in the next half hour as well if you are going to be interested in that. So that's the option there for you. I just want to really thank Vicki, because I genuinely think this hour's just flown by. I can't believe how quickly it's gone. And I think we could have gone on longer, to be fair. It was literally just like there's just so much in there. There's book recommendations going on. There's top tips going on. There's everything. So I have a feeling Vicki might be back on again at some point to go through some more. Because I know, just a very quick one from your end, what are you working on just now? We spoke a lot about sleep and sleep patterns, but I know you're working on, you mentioned right at the start, your new stuff. What's your new stuff, just very quickly?
Yeah, well, what I'm actually doing at the moment is I've been offered a bit of funding to run a bit of research, and I'm doing this through the Open University. And it's basically something called digital distraction, and I'm actually going to be running a closed experiment, okay? And this experiment is basically looking at mobile phone presence and gender effects on short-term working memory. In a nutshell, does having your mobile phone beside you potentially offer a negative distraction, therefore impacting the way that we can store information? So from an educational standpoint, should we really be having phones, tablets, learning off of that type of thing in primary schools, particularly when we're learning to read and write? You know, who knows? We'll find out what my experiment is going to watch this space.
That is absolutely fascinating. It's so up my street, this type of work as well. So Vicki, I really want to know all about this research, because you did mention to me the other day that in schools in France, for example, they've banned mobile phones. Am I right in saying that?
Yes. And my argument is, what do they know that we don't at the moment?
Yeah.
And you know, we are so preoccupied, and it heavily impacts our concentration levels. I mean, even if we see right down to the fact of you can't use your mobile phone while driving, they've made it illegal.
Distracting.
So essentially, that's for a reason. You know, our concentration levels. But I'm also very interested to see if there's specific differences between men and women. There's research showing that women may very much be more preoccupied with mobile phones because we are better, and I hate to say this, please don't shoot me, but we are better at verbal fluency, and therefore more enticed by an object, which allows us to be verbal.
Okay, yeah. I'll look forward to the research on that.
I don't want to be shocked, but...
No, but I mean, it's fascinating, because don't assume that it's exactly the same for both genders as well. You know, the impact can be completely different. And this research is so strong, because I know myself that if you get a moment of like that because you've not got a mobile phone in you, there's something not right. You know, that's like leaving your cigarettes at home. You know, years ago, when I was a smoker. Yeah.
further research, it opens the door for the anxiety scales to kind of kick in. So how often do you look at your phone, blah, blah, blah. So really it does. It opens a lot, but yes, it'll be interesting to see. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, to kind of make this experiment live kind of end of February, and I'll start collecting data throughout March. But yeah, so I mean, fingers crossed, we'll see what kind of transpires from it.
Well, I would love to get you back on here once you've done that research and get you to come and talk about that. It's kind of teed up quite nicely for it, Vicki. So I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you. As long as you've enjoyed today and you'll be back, then
I have. It's been great.
But again, thanks so much for coming on, and thanks to everybody for watching. There's some recommendations in the comments there, and we will wish you a good day. Thank you so much, Vicki.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.